So let's talk about the Constitution for a moment. You write a lot about in the book on the Constitution. Think about it, as you point out in the book, you've had about 57 white Christian property-owning men write this document that now 340 million people are living with, and
right.
Obviously aren't that many of them are white Christian property-owning men. So how has it survived this long when it was written by such a non-diverse group, you could say?
Yeah. So I think for one thing, we can change it. So now it's not only, white property-owning Christian men who can vote. We've invoked the amendment process so that I can vote, and my husband wouldn't have qualified as a property-owning man back then. I think it has also been successful in surviving because it is relatively brief. So it leaves a lot of change. A lot of the change and adaptation has come through the legislative process, and that can be more nimble than Constitution making. So I think the brevity of the Constitution, I think the fact that it allows for change has permitted it to survive.
Now, the person for whom you clerked, Justice Scalia, kind of, not one say invented, but he kind of perfected the idea of what we would call originalism, which is to say, when you're interpreting the Constitution or a statute, you look at the words that are written, and those are the words that are the ones that are govern your decision, or to govern your decision. Other people have a view, what you might call it pragmatism, which is to say, let's look at the Constitution or the statute in the way it might be properly interpreted today, given the way the world has changed. So if you were to say, are you an originalist, or are you a pragmatist, or in between, how would you characterize yourself?
I would say that I am an originalist. I would say too, though, and I try to describe this in the book, that originalism, I think, is sometimes misunderstood as, requiring a judge to put on colonial clothing and imagine themselves to be one of the, white property-owning Christian men who ratified the Constitution. But it's not so rigid, but it does mean that the meaning of the words does control.
Okay, so in the old days, when people were looking at the original intent of something, they used to say, let's look at the legislative intent, let's say if it's a statute. Today, it's thought by originalists, as I understand it, don't go look at the legislative history because that might not be that accurate either. Just look at what the text actually says. Is that a fair?
No, I would say that the legislative history, or when you're talking about the Constitution, we have such a rich, there's so many rich surrounding documents, including the Declaration of Independence, including things like the Federalist Papers. No, all of those things are important because they're part of the context of the words. I think what an originalist would say, and frankly, I think even a pragmatist would say this too, is that you don't treat any one piece of evidence about what one person thought or one small group of people thought as dispositive, as controlling. So you can take it all in as information that's relevant, but for an originalist, the goal would be to figure out what does it mean to have an unreasonable search and seizure, as the Fourth Amendment puts it.